morning, guys. If you are new to our channel, my name is Kylie Gray. I am a wife, I am a mother, I am a homesteader, a gardener, a food preserver, a homeschooler, and a Jesus freak. I think the Jesus freak goes above everything else, but it hasn't always been that way. I'm going to share a piece of my life. I feel like in the last few years, I have done a fairly decent job of that. But I think that there's always been this part of me that has held back. Okay, we got to change the battery. If you're a gardener, I'll just give you a little reference. If you're a gardener or homesteader, these mosquitoes are bad. I've been spraying myself with my bug spray here. But they love my blood. They want to eat me. I keep that out on my porch because it never fails. We are in a garden zone 3, which means nothing for you in the summer if you're planting vegetables or anything. But it does mean something to you if you are overwintering trees, or I have put, I guess, a lot of my identity into being a gardener and a homesteader. And I think that I do enjoy that, but in reality, it is a reflection of the Creator, of the one who I have my true identity in. And I believe that we all have our true identity in Jesus Christ. Well, I'll give you a little story. So when I first started YouTube, it was a while ago, and I was part of this group, and I had some friends that also were doing YouTube, and I remember having a conversation with people, and we were talking about our other favorite YouTubers that inspired us, and I mentioned mine, and one of the gals in the group was like, "Oh, she's not for me. She's too churchy." And that, I was always like, well, that's kind of my that's what draws me to this person the most. And because I love to see her expression in the garden of the Creator. And I think I haven't shied away with that on my channel much. I feel like I don't think if you've been here for a little bit or a while that you would be like, what are you talking about? You do talk about your faith. And I do. But recently, my dad, my father, has been such an example to me of being unashamed. And all right, quick switch of a camera because my other one, I have like 6 batteries and all of them are dead. It's been a while since I've filmed anything. But what I wanted to tell you was my dad. So my dad is 100% unashamed. Maybe he would say differently, but from an outsider looking at his life, he's 100% unashamed of telling people about Jesus. He will tell anybody. We have a drop here for Azure, and it's a private drop, so you wouldn't be able to find it on the website. But each month we have our Azure driver come, and my dad is just unashamed. He's just like, "Hey, so-and-so, our driver's name, what are you living for?" And just out talking to him about Jesus and asking him if he could pray for him, and to the gas station attendants throughout town. And so in Oregon, it used to be illegal to pump our own gas, and now it's not if the gas station gives you the okay to do it. And so we have attendants that come and pump our own gas, which I really like, especially in like the heat of summer or in the frigid cold of winter. I really like being able to just pass the money out the door or the window and get my gas filled. But anyway, he talks to the gas station attendants, to the drive-through person, to you name it. My grandparents recently, my grandma's been on hospice for a year now, and the care that she needed was so far beyond what we could do. Went into a nursing home. And so my dad does a Bible study there once a week, and he's just with all these different types of people. And half of the nursing home is memory care. And so sometimes he has all of these people come that are, have dementia or Alzheimer's or had a crazy brain injury. And most of these people haven't been Christians, but they come, or are Christians who have been lukewarm Christians. And that, I would say, is where I never thought I would think that I was a lukewarm Christian, but I believe I was. And I have done all the things. I have been a missionary overseas. I did YWAM, which is Youth with a Mission, and I was a missionary overseas with that. I went through all sorts of biblical schools. I was an active part of our college campus ministry when I went to my 1 year of college in West Virginia. And I have carried that. Hey, Obes. Good morning. I have carried that with me my whole life. I have been a good Christian. I will tell you that after I went to church a lot of my life. I was in youth groups. But really when I was in college, that 1 year really changed my life. It drastically changed my life. I have a testimony on my channel where I tell you my testimony. And there's actually been some things, especially in this last year, that have, you know how they like, there's that Bible verse. I'm not very good at spouting you like, oh, that was Ephesians or Romans or Isaiah or Daniel or wherever. I'm not good at that. I am not well studied. And I think that's where the lukewarm part comes in. And so it is still a struggle, and I'm not going to deny that. But I have a fire within me that I haven't had ever, I think. And I can't help but be unashamed to tell you all about this. And my dad is a wonderful example, as I was telling you. And I think if you would look at me from the outside, you would think, oh, she loves Jesus. She is not a lukewarm Christian. But now looking back at my life, I definitely think I have been. And I think in America, it's easy to take being a Christian, it's easy to get lukewarm. When I was in YWAM, we did missions in a communist country. And there is 3 different kinds of churches there. There was a church that was a international church, and you had to show your passport to get in. And we would go to that because it was a lot of foreigners, and you had to be a foreigner to get in there. And it wasn't under any of the Communist Party. And so you had a lot of freedom there. And we would go there, and then we would go to there is a Communist Party church that everything that the pastor, they're for locals, but everything has to be ran through the government. Every song you sing, every scripture they talk, every message they sing, and there's officials that come from there, and they monitor everything that's been done. So it's in these beautiful churches, and they're Christian churches, but you're very limited, and it's very spoon-fed of what you can give to your congregation. Then there are the underground churches, and we were a part of that, and that's where we were most of the time. We would go to different Bible studies all around the city where we were. We would go to one where the pastor had been imprisoned 150 times. We would go, and it would be at night, and we'd take different ways to go, and you could always feel like somebody was watching you. And when we'd go, we'd stand outside this little building, and all the windows were barred, and it was in in the city, and you'd go through the city streets, but then it was in a little house area. There's a lot of apartments, and they had these bars, windows, that they would open the little window through the bar and grab this amber glass, and it had a dropper, and they would stick it in the locks. And this would happen to us a lot. And what would happen is the police would come by and put super glue in the locks of the doors so we couldn't get in, because this is where they would move around a lot, but this location, they were onto them. And so these Christians were meeting in places that were at risk of going to jail, at risk of being in prison for your whole life, or probably worse. When we're over there, when we were in that country, we would send emails and tell our family and friends what were going on, but everything was in code. And we couldn't say God or Jesus, and it would be the father did this. We saw this with the father and da 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 da. We had to be very particular about what we were saying, because we are literally risking. We might be there for a short 3-4 months, but these people are living it and actually in it, and we're just there as like helpers. So you had to be extremely careful not to throw your people under the bus or get them in trouble or imprisoned or worse. And then it's for people in that country to believe in God. And I know right now they're under serious persecution. It's getting worse and worse. Their faith was so real that they're willing to go to prison 150 times. And maybe it was only for a couple hours here and there every once in a while, but it's still, you're going to jail. Their faith is so real. And coming back to America, I actually struggled with this I went in 2011. So it's been quite a bit of time since I was there. But when I remember first coming back, I'll just be frank with you. I detested going to church here in America, anywhere. And I lived in multiple states. So it's not just one area, in multiple cities in different states. And it's not just one area, it was multiple areas. And it was hard for me to get, it was really hard for me to get accustomed to coming back here. And I never could figure out why. I'm like, I love Jesus. I love worshiping. I love doing all of these things, but I don't like going to church. And it wasn't until actually like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago at this point, my cousins, my cousin has a crazy story and they just moved back from Kenya. They were in Kenya for like 15, 17 years. And her husband did a lot of medical work there, but they also ran a local orphanage for the children there. And they came back, and I was just talking with her. And obviously my several months doesn't compare to over a decade or almost 2 decades over in somewhere. But when you get a taste of it, it's hard to go back. And I remember talking to her and listening to her and asking just different questions. And I remember telling her about how I've had a hard time adjusting. At this point, I hadn't been in that type of mission work for a decade, but it was still lingering with me. Like going to church was hard. It's just like, it felt like work to make myself go there. Like I had to be mentally prepared if we were going to go to church on a Sunday, or for like a decade, guys. This is a long time. And I would go and I'd have a nice time and fellowship with people, and it was lovely, but getting there was really a hard obstacle. And maybe you could say, oh, well, that's spiritual warfare. Oh, that's the enemy. No. And no, I don't think so. But I talked to her and I was like, I've had a hard time coming back. And she was like, they had too. And she knew exactly what it was though. When you go to a country where the need is so great and where the hunger for God is so great, and these people are literally, their faith is life. It's like they will die for it. In America, we have the freedom of religion, and we have the freedom of speech, and we have all these different freedoms that you can say are being taken away or whatever, but we still have those freedoms. You can say whatever you want to say. Heck, we're in a country where you can burn your own flag. You can do all these different things against your country and say how much you hate it and not be imprisoned or not be killed for that. You cannot do that in other countries, especially in the one I was in. If you did that, I don't want to know what they would do to you. But we live in a country where we can believe whatever we want to believe. Before I went on overseas missions, I was stationed in Maui, Hawaii. And Maui, Hawaii is such a melting pot of different beliefs and spiritualities. I remember we were on a bus, and this is a little trail tangent, but this is also an example of kind of the beauty of America and also her faults. So we were on a bus, and so when you go into YWAM, Youth with a Mission, it is an amazing Christian organization, non-denominational. It's like every denomination on the face of planet Earth comes, like Catholic, Protestant, Pentecostal, and everybody comes together, and we're just one big melting pot. And it's really cool because I think that's how it should be. We shouldn't have all these crazy different denominations and labels on all of us. We're Christians. I think we should be able to get along as such. but that's not the case. So anyway, so we're all there and we're on a bus and we're going to the other side of the island. And I lived on the local side. So the North Shore, was I in Haiku at that point? So it's up on the mountain. And I lived in Haiku. And we take the bus, we go down, we hitchhiked a lot, and we get on the bus to go to the other side of the island. And we're on the bus, and we're being trained as missionaries to talk to people. And it feels like when you're in that type of situation, all these crazy things come to you, because it's just, that probably is spiritual warfare, but it's also just like practice. And so we're learning about all these different religions and how to preach the gospel to people and how to be unashamed to these different people. And we're all on a bus, and there's a bunch of us YWAMers on the bus, and we're going and we're driving. And I think we were coming home at this point. We had already spent the day at the other side of the beach and coming home. And all of a sudden I can hear one of my fellow YWAMers talking to somebody, and they're sharing the gospel. And all of a sudden a guy turns around and goes, "What?" I don't remember everything that happened, but it was like, "No, that isn't true. That is not true. God is everywhere. God is anything. There's not just one God. There's God in this bus. This bus is God. I am God." And then another person pops off and is like, "No, that's not true. There's this and this and this." And it was like all these different religions were like bursting out their beliefs on this bus. And it was insane. I was like, holy crap. And it was like, no Allah, no Buddha, no Hindu, and all these different beliefs. And all of them were in this bus. And obviously we're there and we are Jesus followers and we are preaching the gospel. But when you are a Jesus follower and when you are unashamed of your faith, the enemy is going to come forth and come at you. And it was just like, I just remember this bus being like, it was, there wasn't a fight, there wasn't a thing, but it was just all these people just spouting out their own opinions and all their different beliefs. And that is the freedom that we have here in America, where we have the freedom to be on a bus and we have a freedom to be like, "No, one God, that's a load of crap. This bus is the God. I am the God." We have that of freedom here. But also with that, creates a lot of lukewarmness, especially in a faith that I am, where I am a Jesus follower and I am a Christian. And there is so much freedom given here that there's a lot of lukewarmness. There's a lot of people that are half-heartedly in Christianity. And I would say, "Oh no, I'm a missionary, I'm a this, I'm a that, I did this, and this, and then like, I am not lukewarm." But no. There have been a lot of times where I myself have been lukewarm. But coming back from after we were in Maui, we went over to the communist country and we were there for 3 or 4 months there. And coming back to the States, it's one of those things that you see people that are literally, their life is on the line for their beliefs and they're still believing in Jesus, and they will go to jail or worse, be put to death. And it's scripture coming to life, because when you read the scripture, I have read my Bible through, but I will tell you, a lot of it was in YWAM and a lot of it I was reading. It's a super fast go through, like you're reading the entire Bible in 3 months. That's a lot. And a lot of that information over your head. But when you're taking the time, and since I think it was like, it'll be almost 2 years, October, I haven't read through the whole Bible yet, but I'm really chipping away at it slowly, maybe a little too slowly, but I have been diligent and I rarely miss a day. Sometimes I do, and I'm not condemning myself, even though I feel that condemnation. I'm not condemning myself. You come back, and in all through Acts, Jesus's followers and disciples and apostles are all being persecuted, are all being chased down and imprisoned and killed, and all of these different things are happening. That is the walk of God. And people, that is one of the biggest things I have found about Christianity compared to other religions, is that these people are willing to die And people aren't willing to die for a lie. And these people are being killed, and they're being persecuted, they're being chased, they're being imprisoned, and it's happening in modern day. It might not be happening here in America yet, but it is happening in other countries, and it has been for all of time. But when you come back to America and you see people you see it where it's real and tangible, and these people are living like they did in Acts. It's so real to them that they are willing to be persecuted, that it becomes difficult when you come back to a country. And I don't know if it is now, but the majority of Americans would say that they were Christians, and they are extremely lukewarm. And you walk into churches, and I'm telling you, I'm not talking about any church in particular. It's a lot of them. And people are just mindlessly there going to church on Sunday, and you see them, but you saw them on Friday at the local bar getting drunk and doing all these things and being crazy and living like heathens. But then they go to church on Sunday and worship the Lord. And do you know how hard that is? I mean, I think a lot of people see that, and I think a lot of unbelieving Christians, or a lot of unbelievers in America, have the hugest problem with the hypocrisy that they see in the American church, which I 100% get. I 100% see. I've 100% been there. And maybe my hypocrisy isn't going to the bar on Saturday and getting smashed or getting high as a kite or anything like that, but it's been telling you, professing I'm a Christian, but maybe I'm not in the Word. Maybe I'm not praying. Maybe I'm not the hands and feet of Jesus. And it is hard to come back from an environment where people are living for Jesus in such a way that it's their life. And you come here and you go into church, and there's hundreds of thousands of churches here. And we aren't the hands and feet of Jesus. We aren't living sold out for Jesus. How many people in your church, if somebody would show up there and be like, you will die today if you say you're a Christ follower, would turn around and leave the church and just not care? I think that it is but I also, on the other hand, have seen such an awakening in the church that people are so hungry. There has been so many lies and so many things, and the lies are always the loudest. The lies are always in your face. The lies are always what's being spread all over the media, and you think, oh my gosh, how deprived are we? How deprived is this next generation coming down the pipeline? They got all these problems. But there also is a hunger that it hasn't been there for a while, a hunger for real, genuine relationship with Jesus. And I see a lot of these revivals happening in Catholicism, which I think is interesting because I'm not a Catholic, but I come from lines of, my grandmother was a devout Catholic. And people are returning back to that. And I think, this is my personal opinion, is that we have gone so far to one direction, especially in the Western world, that people are hungry for structure, for discipline, and for something that is bigger than themselves. And so a lot of times they're turning to Catholicism because of its religious type. It's very religious. It's very, we do this and then this and they do this, and they need structure because they've been so out of control, if that makes sense. So I see why people are doing that. A lot of celebrities are going that way too, and I get it because their life have been, Shia LaBeouf is one that comes to mind. Like, Shia LaBeouf was so out of control that he went to, I think he's like an Orthodox Catholic, or he does all the Latin masses and all of this, and he's learning Latin and all of this because I feel like he was so out of control. He just needed that. He needed that. And say what you will about it, but I still believe that the Lord is there. I suppose the moral of my story is that I have been a lukewarm Christian for too long. And regardless of your opinion of me or whatever, I think that thing about that, when I first started YouTube and somebody was turned off by a YouTuber I really enjoyed because she was too churchy, and I was like, well, dang, I feel like I'm going to be way more churchy than that. Nobody's going to follow me. And I feel like that has, or like, I'm going to lose followers, or no, I'm just not going to have the following. And to be honest with you, I've been doing this for a while and I have a very small following. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because I learned when I went through my health crisis back in the fall, like, there are, even if a video I'm talking to you gets 100 views, think of like 100 people in front of you. And that kind of changed my perspective. Or 10 people. Think of the 10 people in front of you. That's way more people that I'm reaching with a video than I have, than just like talking to no one out here on my farm. Like, even if it reaches one other person or 5 other people, or 100 or 500 other people, or 1,000 or a couple thousand people, like, that's way more than I could reach just sitting here on my farm not talking to anybody. So I am wanting to encourage you in your own walk with God. I know there's a lot of Christian believers. Actually, there's a lot of people from all sorts of religions that follow me. And I think that's great because, one, you have not bought into the lie that that you can't listen to other people or have a relationship with other people that believe something different than you. And if you made it this far in this video, you obviously don't have that problem. You can listen to me and understand me and give me just regular old human grace. But if you are a Christian, you made it this far, or even if you're not, there's probably a reason if you made it this far that you are sticking around. You're hungry for something. I've been doing we do a community garden here. And last year it was our first year. And one, I was sick the entire time and didn't know what the heck was happening. And I just wasn't, I don't know, whatever. But this year, I was like telling myself, I'm like, this is my second year. I am no longer, I kind of was reluctantly leading it. I had thought somebody else was going to be leading it with me, or leading it and just having it here, but it ended up just being me. And I was kind of a reluctant leader, but I am not reluctant anymore. And I guess, and I believe that is the same for this YouTube channel. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And I'm going to do it unashamed. I am going to be unashamed of Jesus. And I'm going to be unashamed to show up here and talk about the gospel and talk about and share the gospel and share what my convictions are. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody's going to write something nasty in my comments. Okay. Yeah, that might be a little painful because I've had some comments, but that is nothing. That is not, you're not stoning me out in the parking lot. You're not stoning me. You're not hanging me on a cross. You're just writing something nasty. I think that we are living in such a time that God is calling. There's revivals popping up all over the place. And it's wild to watch and super fun. Now you got to be careful because some people, if people are asking for money, that's a good telltale sign that, that's a good telltale sign that it is not something you should stay away from if people are asking for money. And when you are following God, it doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. It's actually quite the opposite. You have to be so sold out that it is your lifeline on the line. It is your life on the line. And, so yeah. There's a little piece of story that has been on my heart. I actually didn't think I would go and tell you that story because I think a lot of people, I didn't think I would tell you that story because I didn't want to offend anybody and I didn't want to ruffle any feathers, especially within the American church or within the church. But if you are somebody who sees the hypocrisy in the church, it's there. There's no denying it. But there are true believers within the church walls. I do not believe that you have to go to church to be a Christian. I do not believe you have to show up every Sunday to have a walk with God. I actually think I know the people I know in my life that have the most real relationship with the Lord, who are unashamed of Jesus, who are out being the hands and feet of Jesus, don't even step in the walls of a church regularly. Of a traditional church, I would say. I feel the Lord the most when I'm out working in the garden or milking the cow or just at home with my children. Doing the dishes, actually. This has been this year. It used to be when my kids were younger, it was hard. It was very, very hard. I would find solace in prayer and just cry out to the Lord in my garden, and I would feel the Lord the most in the garden. And I understand that drawing literally to go back to the garden, which is the name of this is why I called my garden group Back to the Garden, was because I feel like God is calling a lot of his folks back to the garden. But more importantly, it's not just the garden, but it is, he's calling people to him. There's all these people that are hungry for the word of the Lord. True hunger. Not lukewarm hunger, not do what you think you're supposed to do, go to church on Sunday and that's you're done for the week. That was your good deed. That's your communication with the Lord. You got it in. No, a real hunger for a relationship with Jesus, a real hunger for serious change in their lives, a real hunger. And a lot of it is hard. A lot of it is pulling back from what society says is good and okay. And a lot of it is forgiveness and a lot of it's hard forgiveness. People that you've thought you were done with, but no, this has happened in my life, so that's why I'm using it as an example. People you have rightly, you in a court of law or just a court of public opinion, people would say, oh, you have every single right to wash your hands of that. No. And in my case, nope. God's not done with them. And forgiveness is massive. And you might be forgiving people and you might have to forgive them 100 and bazillion times. And it'll get easier. The more you forgive, the more you keep forgiving and keep going through it and just spending time alone in quietness, without your phone, without music, without an audiobook, all things that people would say were okay to listen to, music and all of these things, and spending some, just quieting your spirit and quieting your mind. Things will come up and come into mind, and sometimes it's emotional and hard hitting and you're crying and praying and really doing some work, but sometimes it's still and soft and you can do work just like that. But sometimes you just keep forgiving these people and you keep forgiving, and sometimes you forgive people and that's all it is. But sometimes you forgive and maybe the Lord is like, okay, now it's time for this. Now it's time for that. You thought you were done with these people, but maybe you're not. Or maybe he's not. And I think that there's this scripture that just keeps sticking out to me. What is the exact scripture? I'm going to paraphrase it here. Plenty will the harvest be, and few are the harvesters. I'm not sure. This popped out of my mouth when I was doing my first group Back to the Garden day, and I was like, and I will not be in that category. I want to be a harvester for Jesus Christ. I want to be a harvester for the kingdom. I want to bring as many people into the kingdom as possible. Be unashamed. And I saw this quote the other day, and it was talking about, I'm also paraphrasing, but essentially people are going to call you crazy. People are going to unfollow you. People aren't going to want to be your friend. They're not going to want to be around you. But if you can bring one soul into the kingdom of heaven by just living unashamed, isn't that worth it? Isn't it worth being called crazy? Isn't it worth being called a Jesus freak? If you call me a Jesus freak, that is the biggest compliment you could ever give me. Yeah. So because I am a 90, I grew up in the 90s. Technically I was born in the 80s, but like 3 months. But DC talk, yeah, that was a big deal. So Jesus freak, yeah. So just call me a Jesus freak. Love it. Biggest compliment ever. But there are so many souls out there that are hungry for truth. There are so many people out there hungry for truth, and so many people that are just desperate for change and desperate for the real authenticity and wanting to be set free and wanting to be brought in. They're just ready. And there's not many harvesters. I know that miracles still happen. I've seen them. I want to see more. I want to see more, and I want to see more and more and more. My miracles I've seen are small, and some are bigger, but some are small, and some haven't been completed yet. But I have a promise from the Lord I know is going to happen, and it is a miracle. I have different other things, miracles we've been praying for, and I know he can set people free. I know he can deliver you from whatever demons you're dealing with. God is real. He is tangible. The God of the Bible, the God of the Gospels, the God of Acts, the God of Revelation, he is real. And he wants you, and he's calling you to him, and it is not an easy walk. You will have persecution. You will have people that think you're crazy. You will have people that call you names, people that won't watch your YouTube channel because you're too churchy. Great, fine. You will have people who unsubscribe like crazy from this channel, from this video. I want my life of being a gardener where I'm sowing seeds and I'm tenacious, and we live in a harsh climate. We get frost in summer. I've lost so many plants. If you don't harden off your plants here, even if you have 3 cloudy days, this is me because we had people, one of the gardeners in our garden group brought a ton of plants. And I was like, are these hardened off? And he's like, oh no, we got a few cloudy days. Our sun is so intense here that I think only one plant survived out of the couple rows we planted because they got sun scald and just withered within like 2 days. And it was overcast those 3 days, 2-3 days. So I want to be that tenacious as a harvester for the kingdom of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, that I am just as tenacious as I am out in the garden, that I am willing to just keep plugging away. And I want my life, and I think this happens often, where was it Peter? He was a fisherman, and then he became fishers of men. And I am a harvester in the garden, and I want to be harvesters of men. Lord willing. I want to be so unashamed that when the Azure driver pulls up, when my dad did this, I was like smiling and awkwardly laughing because I know my dad, and I was feeling awkward. But I don't want to be that way. I want to be unashamed because I don't know what the Lord has in store for them. I don't know however many people have come before me and planted tiny seeds. I know I've planted seeds with other people, and I might not be the one to harvest them, but I believe that someone will. I believe there's other harvesters out there, even though there's few of us. But if there's few harvesters for the kingdom, we gotta be harvesting a heck of a lot. And last year, my garden group, talk about this often because it's parallels in my life, and the Lord has worked through a lot of things in my life through I relate to that garden group because it was something that the Lord has really been working with me in. And last year season, I remember a group of us, we started out with like 50 people at the beginning of the group, and it slowly like really whittled down, and we had 18 people that were in the group, but it would be like nobody could make it at the same week. So I think the least amount of people one time we had was like 6 or 8. And towards the end, we had a hard year of weeds and everything dying, and everything we're going through right now happened last year as well. Like plants die, all these crazy things, but we're actually ahead because we have garlic and potatoes that are doing well. But we had replanting and replanting and replanting. And then by the time harvest came in September, it was so abundant that we were all like, oh my gosh, oh my God. A lot of things went to waste in the garden because we didn't have enough harvesters. And we were washing vegetables and we were like, oh my gosh, none of these are really clean. What if people are like complaining that the vegetables aren't clean? And we were all joking like, hey, if you want clean vegetables, then you can volunteer or you can join the garden group. And it was funny. So if you got like vegetables that weren't as like squeaky clean, join the garden group. and become a vegetable washer because the harvesters were few. And the harvest was plenty in the... Hi, Madeline. Oh, you need some lovin's. This is Maddie. She's sweet, but she will eat you. She will. Would you eat someone? No. She would never. She's a dirty dog. Are you a dirty dog? So, that was just... And we were all... And then it's just what it was. So the harvest was plenty, but the harvesters were few. And that is such a mere image. There is such an imagery of what I feel like I have been called to go forth and do. I am a harvester of my garden, and I am going to be a harvester for the kingdom. So, that is what I have to tell you. If you haven't seen me in a while and then I drop this on you, well, that is what it is. We've been busy, we've been crazy busy, finishing up school and doing all the things, and I don't know what's going on in there. It sounds like somebody's hammering, but I think a child is loading the dishwasher. Oh, that's what I was telling you. We're going to go, this is a part of it. I would find solace in the garden a lot of the times, but I've had like a perspective shift, and I have been asking the Lord. I've not been a very good housekeeper. Still not. It's hard for me. It doesn't come naturally for me, but I have found loading the dishwasher or making dinner for my family, tasks that if you would have asked me 5 years ago or 3 years ago, I would have told you I didn't care for. I felt like a lunch lady. I felt like I was chained to the kitchen and my kitchen wasn't even clean. And it's still not clean often, but I have felt that I feel the Lord really, and I guess I feel the Lord anywhere I go, but I feel like I have a good quiet time nobody wants to be with mom while she's loading the dishwasher or cleaning the kitchen, and sometimes making dinner because I always got something for you to do. Oh, you're there? Scrub that pan, sweep the floor. And so they make themselves scarce when I'm in there doing my jobs. But that's okay. I'm able to pray for them because my boys, your children need a praying mama. Your husband, your wife needs a praying spouse. And the power of prayer is real. And I am unashamed to tell you that. So, yeah, that's what I got to tell you. I'll see you guys on the next video because I'm doing a little, I've been inspired by some other YouTubers that are doing some challenges. There's quite a few that are doing like a daily challenge. I don't think I'm going to do a daily challenge. That's just not practical for my life. But what is practical is like 3 days a week. Maybe 4, maybe 5, who knows? But I am going to be doing a challenge, and this is the first one going up, which is kind of crazy, and I'm kind of a little scared to put it up. But it is what it is. I am unashamed. I'll see you on my next video. Bye, guys. Oh, I've been there for too long.